Welcome viewers of Intimacy Hub. My name is Tziporah Kingsbury. For those of you who have yet to meet me, I am an intimacy and relationship educator and the founder of Intimacy Hub. And today Mark New, who is our special guest here today in our client spotlight, we were actually going to have this conversation. And I'm like, well, why don't we have this conversation and share it with you? Because I'm finding these intimate talks, while they're interviews, intimate conversations, I'm finding today in the world with everything that's happening with us, many of us just wanting more intimacy and connection in the world, these conversations tend to be very relatable. And that's something I'm loving about this. So before I move forward into asking Mark a lot of questions, I want Mark, go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where you're coming from, and what you do in the world.
That's really kind. Hi, Tziporah. Hi, I'm Mark. My day job, I'm a key worker. So I work at a government and apartment. It's a nice team, but it's super stretched. As I'm sure people imagine, I've got to do twice the job with half the resources. So it's quite busy within that. But that's much more in, let's say, the corporate world. In the conscious world, I run a big Facebook group called Summer of Love with Mark New. And that's really with the intention to connect both worlds, to connect the corporate and the conscious, the scientific and the spiritual. And that's really in terms of me as where I am at the moment, in terms of trying to build community.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And something that I just want to tap into what you said, merging the corporate and the conscious. And that's something I really appreciated about you and your personal discoveries throughout the Redefining Intimacy course. And something that we're here talking about today are the 3 pillars of Redefining Intimacy program, which is the one self-discovery, communication for connection, and relationship as a pathway. And so in a moment, we're going to go deeper into how you brought this into the corporate world, because I know I got the in because I received a lot of your home discovery processes. But share with us first, why now? Like, why this year? I knew we did this course this summer. Why did you choose to partake, to dive in? I know you do a lot of self-development work. So why?
Well, if I can say myself, I've been training in the field since about 97. But to keep it short, my first ever teacher was about breathwork. If I can share, I have a stammer. Sometimes it's small, sometimes it's big, it can vary. But the breathwork was the single most important teacher for me. It was very vulnerable and very empowering at exactly the same time. So I knew when I was choosing a teacher to dive deeper into this work, there's many teachers out there, but the moment it included breathwork, oh my God, I knew this would be something that would feel connecting in so many different ways.
Beautiful. And as Mark mentions, breathwork, one of the foundational pillars inside of the Redefining Intimacy program is conscious breathwork therapy. And I find that if we can develop a felt sense of our experience in the world versus just how our mind reacts to something, if we can develop a relationship with how our body is actually reacting to something, which is considered a felt sense, is we have more information to maybe change some dysfunctional habits or add to our functioning in the world of relationships and intimacy. And we're talking here about, intimacy with the self. So emotional intimacy, physical intimacy, as well as sexual intimacy. And this is why we do apply it in the corporate world, because it is about person to person humanity connection. So I'm peeking down a little bit at my questions, and what were potentially 1 to 3 challenges? We'll call them challenges. I know during our 10 weeks together, I loved calling them opportunities, but just for folks listening in, they might understand better if I say challenges. What 3 areas of focus did you find yourself bringing into the course that you wanted to work on, that you wanted to develop more into?
Um, Thank you for the question. And I think one of the unexpected benefits for me, I always expected there'd be benefits in terms of relationship with myself, relationship with my girlfriend, with my partner, but relationship with work colleagues. I thought, no, that's like a completely separate world. But the impact for me was really seeing how the two were connected in a very practical space. I'm a key worker. I work online. Resources and time are really, really tight. So the challenge for me was not just to book holiday to have a break, but to get my work covered when I was away. And that was trying to have a concise communication with the different managers that was short and effective, but didn't go into story, didn't go into projection, into emotion. And that was a little bit new for me, a little bit challenging in different ways. I thought, oh, this one said no before, they're always saying no. Will it follow the same pattern? But really seeing things in a new way and staying present, not stuck in the past, and changing my type of communication was very successful for me. So in a simple way, when I try to get the time off, and I was actually successful. And that was really very important to my health and my well-being, really.
Could you share, there's so much in there I want to unpack. Can you share first, if you can recall, how it felt in your body when you said you even used different languaging, right? A different style of communication. And when you went into this conversation in your workplace, knowing in the past it didn't always pan out the way you wanted, how does your body feel when you went in with these new tools and new presence?
I think my body was feeling whole. The problem I was feeling before, and especially coming into breath work, if I was feeling short of breath, that I was maybe grasping for breath, not feeling fully empowered. And this time, coming from a space with a full breath, with a full empowerment, I felt whole in myself. And coming from that space, I wasn't coming from a space of need, I was coming from a space of wholeness. And even though I probably didn't realize it in those particular words, really looking back and thinking back, I think that was the impact for me.
Wow. Wow. I love that. Not coming from a place of need, but coming from a place of wholeness. How often do we, when we want something or we do feel a lack, right, in our system, that we've all felt it. I know I have, where it's this, I feel literally like I'm 10 steps ahead of my body. So my nervous system is really agitated and charged, and it's in a panic state or survival state. And then I'm going in to ask for something that I want, and then it's coming out, literally it's being communicated in the sense of neediness, grasping at something. And people can sense that. They can sense it in our tone, they can sense it in the underlining energies, they can sense it in body language. And we feel it from a place of constriction and contraction in our body. And something that Mark talked about was the breath, and how, by working on opening up the breath, it set the tone, it set the foundation of being more present, centered, having a calmer and clear nervous system. So I'm going to say being more self-regulated. And in that moment, that also impacts the way the emotions are impacting, like, our brain, right? And so it's going to impact then how we ask for something. And so I'm sharing this with people in steps, with you listening, is because there's stages to this, that we're working internally on coping mechanisms, on patterns, on the nervous system. And then we're applying the skills, which I'm hearing, Mark, you then apply the skills in your communication, how to make a request versus a demand. And again, that's a whole nother unpacking. There's so many layers to that. So thank you for sharing this experience with us today. Yeah. I'm curious, and it's interesting because I asked one question. I keep peeking at my questions, but I ask, and then we seem to answer a lot of the questions in the one question. But I'm curious. We're talking about the work environment right now in the corporate world, but I'm also curious because I know obviously more about you, and I know your partner, your girlfriend, participated in the course as well with you, and we also had a one-on-one session. So I know a little bit in. I'm not going to give any away, but the question that I want to ask you is, if we were to turn now more into your personal world, what were some of the takeaways that applicable things that you were able to apply from the course to your personal relationships?
Yeah, I think some of the highlights for me, and I've been training in the field for 10 years with different tantra teachers, conscious sexuality teachers for a long time. But I think with this, really the impact of being vulnerable. And I can be vulnerable with someone whom I trust, so that feels okay. But really seeing it from all sides. And I think for me, it was seeing when I was vulnerable, but not from a space of wanting or needing something, really from coming from a space of trusting me and trusting my partner. And I think that felt very, how shall I put it? It still felt vulnerable. I think it felt coming from a space of safety and a space of trust. Mm-hmm. And that was a whole new space for me. Yeah. So I think it was really feeling that when I'd come and been vulnerable to my girlfriend, and then it opens up the space for her, if she chooses to be vulnerable for me as well. Knowing it's not a space of judgment, it's a space just of sharing and acceptance.
So let's go into that a little bit more, and the vulnerability piece. And again, I'm coming from a place I know, so I know some of the secret information in here, but I'm curious if you could give curiosity. Well, let's stop there. So what I'm getting is you also approached it with trust, but it was more of a sense of curiosity versus I have to have this. And the second question, the question that I want to ask you is, could you offer a tangible situation where you were able to access that trust inside of you? Maybe it was in asking for something or communicating a need or something tangible to share with us.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I think in one very simple way, if I can say to my girlfriend, we're in lockdown here in London for now. We were previously in the springtime. So the key part when we meet up is at a weekend, and the key part is then, do I have time and does she have time? And obviously, it feels important for me, important for her, important for the relationship. But occasionally, important things happen for either one of us. That means one of us may need to stay at home to take care of stuff there, and to be vulnerable to say, even though this is the only time when I can meet you and I'm in a relationship with you and I love you, I need this time to sort things out at home. And that's a very vulnerable thing to share. Going through the whole journey of the pandemic that we are, but that felt very safe. And I think, how shall I put it? For me, it was a space of compassion for me and compassion for her. And I think also when she could see the intention wasn't about I'm giving up this day so I can take something else for later, some sort of a negotiation, a legal argument within that. It wasn't anything like that. It was really a space of being vulnerable with compassion and seeing it from the other person's side as well. What would I do if I was in that person's shoes, in their home, with their situation, with work, family, kids, however things are happening? So I think that was really the importance for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that vulnerable piece. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
You know, we talk about one of the pillars, communication for connection, which is what Mark's speaking into. It's, you know, having that ability to maybe step back and pause and be like, yeah, what do I really need right now? And how do I communicate that in a way that still shows I love you? You know, if it's to a partner, like, I love you, and this is what's true for me right now, whether it's something else is happening and I need to stay home. And what are the steps? Because there are steps, I'm not going to give them away today, but there is this methodology to applying the appreciating and not acknowledging and affirmation of the relationship and the person, and still being able to communicate and voice what one needs when it's different from what our loved one might need in the moment. And that can be difficult, and it's so common, right? Like, we can feel, I don't know if you felt it, Mark, but at times it's like the constriction, the nervousness. I think sometimes the idea of, if I communicate what I actually need right now because my loved one is wanting something else right now, they're going to leave, or it's going to start an argument, it's going to start a fight, they're going to think I don't love them. Have you ever had those thoughts? I know I have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it happens. And so that's why I find these are skills that we can learn, that we can go inside with the somatic work, with the breathwork therapy, and shift those old patterns, to shift the nervous system and those mechanisms, and then have a fresh, clean slate inside of us to start to learn and build these skills. And I know something that, Mark, you did through the course. And again, I know you are also experienced, but through the course, every week you were sent home, not with textbook reading, but to apply
Yeah.
specific processes and methods to everyday life, because to me, that's where I believe we learn the best, is by application to everyday versus just opening up a book. So on that, we're coming to the final questions here. And I know you've answered these to me personally through email, but I'd love us to talk about this here on video. Is, if you can give me 2 ways that this impacted the benefits intricately, like inside, okay? Inside you, like, what feelings, what felt sense? Did you feel more empowered, more peace, more connected, more fulfilled? Like, what feelings did it leave you with that it benefited you intrinsically?
I think in terms of my body, in the felt sense, it was really feeling that there's crazy, chaotic times happening outside, but feeling more stable, more centered in myself. That felt really, really important for me. Obviously, I'd still feel, in terms of the happiness, the sadness, the sort of highs and the lows, the polarity within that. But knowing that I can travel to either extreme, but still come back to my center, I think it was that felt very reassuring. Rather than feel I'm in my center, but I daren't go to either side, because if I go there, I won't come back. Knowing I can go there and come back felt really, really important for me. It's very reassuring.
Yeah, beautiful. So stable, more stable, self-regulated. Yeah, beautiful. And if you were to share with us the extrinsic, like 1 to 2 external benefits, like by being more stable and self-regulated, how did that, you've already shared at the start of our call today, but how did that impact beneficially your communication, your work environment, your relationship, you know?
Well, if I can say, for example, in the work environment, one of which is obviously with consent, with boundaries. Everyone's very motivated. I'm motivated to get the job done, but the risk is, will I say yes when I mean to say no? So for me, it's very important in the work environment, and sometimes I can say no. And I said, wow, Mark always says yes, but Mark said no. So they'd really stop back and listen. But saying no, not from an aggressive space, saying no from a space that it was empowering for me, but empowering for them. I think if I could explain maybe a space of listening to me and listening to them, so that I could feel heard and they could feel heard. And I think that felt really important for me within that.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
hearing
Have
like,
I,
yeah, I was just going to comment on more concise communication, more confidence in expressing your boundaries and doing it in a way that people listen to you more. Like they heard you. Yeah, I celebrate that with you. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share, closing words as we come to the end of our conversation today?
well, yeah, if I could share something, it's a little bit vulnerable to share, but it's okay to share. It's in a space of vulnerability and safety and trust. And so, so where are we now? I'm in London, so I'm let's say the other side of the world from you guys. But about 60 minutes ago, most of the news companies they called the election. And if I can say in a sensitive way, I have friends on all sides, friends who are on the red, friends who are blue. So I in no way endorse either side, really have support for each side. But automatically I was feeling happiness and sadness with both sides, feeling the happiness with one, the sadness with the other. And from before, I would have maybe felt a little bit trapped and a little bit constricted. Whereas now it feels a little bit more free. It feels that it's okay to be happy, it's okay to be sad, and to come back to center. And I think that feels hugely reassuring for me. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that piece. So important, I believe, in today's world to hear that. Yeah. So thank you, Mark, for sharing your vulnerability here with us today, with me, for joining me on this call. And thank you, viewers, for listening in. And today I want to give you an invitation. So we are starting the next Redefining Intimacy 10-week live course starting on November 14th, I believe it is, if I'm correct in my mind. And I'd love to invite you into that if you feel inspired, if you feel that you want to dive deeper into connection, to develop more self esteem and confidence, to soothe and self regulate your nervous system and be able to communicate differently, whether that's in your personal life or in your business life, just shoot me a message. There'll be a link attached to this video, and just I'd love to get on a call with you and see if it's a fit for what you need right now in your world. So until soon, wishing you all a beautiful, beautiful day wherever you're at in the world. Be well.